Hello, thanks for downloading this episode of the Nerdball Podcast. I am your host, Lorenzo Melcher, coming to you from PB Studios after an episode or two. I don't remember anymore. I record these things so far in advance. It may be, I think I did one, Zoom, maybe two. I don't know. Anyway, we're back here, ready to go. Like I say every week, thank you for always liking, sharing, subscribing, downloading to the podcast, doing whatever you can to help the podcast grow. It is all greatly appreciated. I also looked at my reviews and stuff on like Apple and Spotify and that kind of stuff. So I see those, and we've had a couple more. So those are cool. I got I think 30 some, 40 some on Apple. So keep doing that because that helps people find the podcast as well. Along with word of mouth is always helpful. Still thinking about what I want to do for sponsorship. So if you're interested in wanting to sponsor the podcast, it is very affordable. I don't know what those levels are, but you're going to get a really good deal. So reach out to me, thenerdballpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to be on the podcast, same email, same everything. So just reach out. Most of the time, you have my cell phone number, so you can text me if you want to come on the podcast. So again, thank you all for always doing everything you can for the podcast. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hi, this is Noah Taylor, and I'm on the Nerdball Podcast.
This is the Nerdball Podcast with Lorenzo Melcher.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, Noah, for coming to the podcast.
Of course, I'm happy to be here.
Whenever someone is doing that, I said it a couple times. The thing I always say is awesome. Thanks for coming on the podcast, or great. I said both for you. I don't know what else to do there. So
we all fall into like certain scripts of life as to like this is the good response to throw something out. I definitely am guilty of like, hey, how you doing? I'm just like, the weather's great today. Like completely nonsensical because it's like the preloaded, like this is my response.
Yeah. Or if you do that expecting a response and someone's like, actually.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not ready for this.
How are you today? And there's like, man. And they're like, oh no.
Like it's 6:15 in the morning.
I don't have the emotional bandwidth. I haven't had caffeine.
Well, yeah. Thanks again. No, I'm looking forward to this. We talk quite often.
Yes, we do.
Work stuff and non-work stuff. So the first thing I always ask people is what is something they nerd out about? Something they're really into, something you've been doing your whole life, or something new maybe?
So right now I'm really nerding out about TTRPGs, tabletop role-playing games. I've been doing Dungeons & Dragons running games for a very large amount of years. And just recently I've run into a new system that I'm really liking called Delta Green. And
this is types of Dungeons & Dragons?
So Dungeons & Dragons is very specifically owned by one company, Wizards of the Coast, but there are a lot of TTRPGs that are not affiliated with the company that do different things in cool new ways with systems. Delta Green is not owned by Wizards of the Coast, but it is a tabletop system that is focused on like horror storytelling.
Are you saying Dream or Green?
Green.
Okay. Horror style.
It's horror, and so you have like two health pools that you are trying to preserve while trying to figure out the story and meet your goals. And one is your like your bodily health, just like in every other game, and the other is your sanity. And so you'll see things that will like harm your grip on reality. And like you'll see like someone die, or you'll see some supernatural event, like all the furniture starts floating, and then you take sanity points because that's not supposed to happen, and you'll take damage in that way. And the game's really interesting because it also has systems for like healing or maintaining that. Like you can like chain smoke a pack of cigarettes to heal your sanity.
Wow!
But that damages your ability to sleep, which hurts your ability to like stay sane. And so there's lots of like trade-offs. The major way is you have bonds. So you have like a list of like, I have my mom, my therapist, and my brother, and I can call one of these people to heal some of my sanity. But if I tell them anything too insane, that harms the bond because they start to trust you less. Because it's a really interesting system.
You know, these games sound very intricate to play, and then I can't imagine like coming up, like creating this thing.
It's the systems are so complex, and in lots of my tabletop groups, we have jokes of like nobody here really understands the rules, but we're trying to keep in the spirit of things. In this Delta Green game, I definitely don't understand all the rules, and so I'm kind of like feeling it out as I go.
Yeah.
But as long as everybody's there to have a good time. What is harder to do is to come up with like the writing of things.
Okay.
Delta Green is all based in like eldritch horror, like the Cthulhu mythos and like things that you're not supposed to understand when you look at, which I think is an interesting.
It makes it harder.
Yeah, it makes it harder.
Yeah.
But I went a completely different route because I don't understand eldritch horror at all, and so I actually made my game instead of like some lab in like Area 51. That's how the game is meant to be, but mine is set in an Ohio town. And it's like folk horror, so like natural phenomenon, like the animals are acting weird, really strange stuff. Like one of the players did something to piss something off, and a storm of crows broke through all the windows in the building and started swarming.
Wow.
And that's the kind of vibe that I'm going for. But the writing that goes into that is sometimes tricky, but it's a lot of fun.
So are you I don't know what they call it. Like for Dungeons and Dragons, it's Dungeon Master.
It is
right?
the Dungeon Master,
Yeah.
And they have different names for it, but if you say Dungeon Master, everyone knows what you're running. Some games like to say Storyteller or Game Master, but DM is basically how we always refer to it. And I've been a DM for a very long time. I've been doing it since before college. I was in high school when I started. I actually paid for some of my college apartments. I was running games, and I took some private dues, and that helped pay for my rent, which was a really great way. I got to do something fun and interact with people that I liked, and then I also got to be able to kind of like support myself a little bit. I'm very grateful to the people who allowed me to do that.
Yeah, because that's I mean, obviously with this podcast, I'd love to be able to make some money for this podcast. But I did a podcast with the Metroparks when I first started, and it was cool to like. I wasn't necessarily like, here's the podcast check, but it was on. You know, I was on the clock while I was doing this cool podcast, and I was like, this is awesome, I'm getting paid to do a podcast, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's always, and I did have a job at a game store for a while where I was in charge of their D&D events. And so there I like worked for a company in a store, and I did get like essentially like a D&D check. It wasn't the whole job, but that was a big part of my job.
Is it hard? Like, is it hard to be a DM? Like, is it all up to you to be like, I have to create the story?
No, not necessarily. D&D has a lot of what are called story modules, which are like books that you can buy that say, here's a story, here's how you run it, here are choices you can present the players with, and here are paths that you can go on. Like they
give you everything.
Yeah, they give you everything.
Run it.
I cannot run a module. Like I physically can't do it. Every time I'm presented with a module, I'm like, okay, neat. Like for the store, because it was affiliated with a company, I had to run pre-written, pre-approved modules.
Okay.
And when I did, I couldn't do it because the stories, I just wasn't happy with the writing, or something was going on with the player in the game. And I'm like, I want to like pay service to that because I want it to be interesting.
So people still had fun and enjoyed it. You just had a little less fun.
No, well, I had a lot of fun. I had a great deal of fun. It's because I rewrote everything. Like I ripped apart I ripped apart the modules and I pieced them back together, and I made a ton of original writing.
Okay.
One of the most famous D&D modules that people play is Curse of Strahd. It's like one of the big ones. Someone will say like, I played a Strahd campaign. Like,
okay. Most
D&D players know what that is. And it's about a vampire, and you're stuck in a valley that is surrounded by a fog. And the whole idea is that like you have to, it's a Dracula ripoff. You have to hunt down and kill Dracula. And I was running that module. I'm just like, the story is very constricted. And so I blew it open, and I made this much larger narrative about like deals with old gods and blood pacts and like the cost that this vampire has to keep up in order to maintain power. And I made the story like 10 times more complicated, but I felt like that was in service to the player's experience because they had way more to chew on and do and find ways to interact with the world. Yeah. They actually ended up they found his mother and tried to plead with her because she had a stake in like keeping him powerful, and like that's really fun. That's something that's not really in like the base game. The mother is a character, but you can't like bargain with her to try and like, here's an argument for the greater morality of the situation. Will you like hear us out? Like that's not really something that's written into the module, and it's a kind of nuance that only comes from listening and letting your players do basically whatever the hell they want and reacting to it. And I think that's where a lot of the fun is when it's really, really player driven, because D&D or any TTRPG like Delta Green or any other system that there may be, the real beauty of it is that you can do pretty much anything. It is a world that the only constraint is imagination. And usually that kind of storytelling freedom only comes from like writing a novel if you're like isolated by yourself. But being able to do it in like a communal sense, like I have a group of like 6 people in front of me and they're all like bouncing off of each other. I think that is the freedom of that is what's really fun. I think that the module restricts that in a lot of ways.
So that's why you like to do your own thing.
That's why I rewrite pretty much everything I do. Yeah.
So every time you start a new campaign, does it start with a module and then you mess with it?
Not always. The only ones that I actually started with modules was when I was doing it with a company.
Okay.
Because that was like a prerequisite.
Yeah.
And then things would get crazy and harebrained and I would rewrite things, but it would be okay because I'm still in like the shell of this module. But lots of my campaigns I write from scratch. I pick a setting and I have a conflict. And usually there's something called a session 0. I don't know if you've never played a TTRPG. Usually games start with a session 0, which is not even play. It is a discussion of like, here's what I think the game is going to be like, what it might be about. And you have discussions of like, what kind of characters do you want to play? What is the kind of like narrative arc that you might think you're trying to go for? And so it's a very cooperative experience. Lots of DMs like to joke like, I'm God of this universe. But it really is more so you are building a setting around your players so that they have the best chance to have an interesting, fun story. Okay. So really the players are God, and you're trying to create something that's fulfilling and reactive to their storytelling.
So you're not trying to like, you're God in the sense of like, I'm keeping everyone within the constraints of their game,
right?
But you're not like dooming everybody all the time, or granting them all their every wish or whatever.
Right. There's then that's another term. It's like a war gamer or a war DM, where they are players who will play like, my goal is to kill you.
Really?
That is something that does occur, and it's something that I don't really like. But some people like to play that kind of. We call it meat grinder, where it's just this horrible dungeon that is just the worst thing you could ever come across, and it's so hard to succeed. And you come in with your character, and you expect them to get mulched within like 2 sessions.
And I would imagine, like you're signing up for that, and like you said, the players like it, right? Or for the most part.
For the most part, you can. And that's why a session 0 is important, is to have the discussion of like, here's what my expectations are, here's what your expectations are. Are we on the same page before we get into this?
Yeah. And you've been doing it so long where you have the session 0, but if you're playing with the same friends, you kind of know already like what's happening. That's
another thing. I feel like TTRPG is a really great way. If you want to like really understand people, get them to play a fake character.
Yeah.
Every character that everyone plays is just a facet of themselves. I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty of this in like the non-playable characters that the players interact with in my games. But every character is just a facet of yourself.
Yeah.
And so if you play like 3 campaigns with someone, I know this person really well. Like, I have seen these different facets of this person like fleshed out in an extreme way. And so like I've heard a lot of things about like D&D is therapy, and it really is actually, because you get to have these really intense moments of like experience and storytelling in something completely fictional and non-dangerous, which is great. But you can still tap into stuff. I have seen so many people, and this is not a bad thing at all, and I'm guilty of it as well. People will cry at the table. Like, story gets so intense or stakes are so high that people will like tear. I've seen tears fall, and people like have to like stop because of how intense the storytelling is. And that's the marrow. That's the really great stuff. That's why we do it. Right? Yeah. Like, as a storyteller, to affect someone so deeply that the emotion is so much. Yeah. That's like the most rewarding thing.
Yeah. Whether it's crying, laughing, anger, like any of that stuff. You're like, you realize like, oh my, this is what's happening right now,
Mm-hmm.
So have you ever had like in any of your campaigns like had like, all right, we've been doing, I don't know, how long do they last? Or does it vary?
It does vary, and it depends on the playgroup. And some playgroups have different expectations of how long things last.
Uh-huh.
And the games that I ran in college, that they would last for like somewhere like 100 sessions. Each session is like 4 hours long.
Wow.
And I was doing like 2 campaigns a week. And so it was like 8 hours a week of campaigning.
Yeah.
And they're just these huge arcs of story. And that can be really interesting, and it allows a lot of room for nuance. And I think that's really great. They're also kind of exhausting.
How do you remember things too? I feel like you got to remember a lot of stuff.
I keep notes. I have like a master document that I keep, and they usually end up being like 700 pages long of a document of all of the information that has gone on in the campaign. And you have to keep track of it as like the game master.
Yeah.
And you're responsible for making it all too. Most of the time you end up writing a world and they won't interact with like 80% of it.
Yeah.
And so lots of information will also fall to the wayside.
But you were going to say you were going to say that they last for a long time, but it's fun, lends to a lot of creativity, but it's also exhausting.
It is very exhausting. I've moved away very recently. I don't run as many games. I'm playing in some games now, which is a lot of fun, which is a great break for me. And I'll eventually get back into running games. But that like 100 session 4 hour games can, if you do it for like 5 years straight, like I did, it starts to be like, okay, I need to breathe. Right now I'm in a group that is doing all of the games are like max like 10 sessions, 8 to 10 sessions. And this is the one where we're trying out lots of different systems. So like instead of D&D, we'll just be like, this is cool. This is some weird little like robot fighting game. We're going to try that. That's Lancer or Cyberpunk. And that group is way more like experimental, where like we want to do weird
You all know
stuff.
what you're doing. Yeah.
Okay. We all know that we're not going to be committed for 100 sessions.
Yeah.
So we can be a little more lax with it. But I've seen some actually really powerful storytelling come out of that group as well. I've seen people cry at that table. So even within like a 10-session experience, if you're comfortable enough, you can still get these really rich, fulfilling stories.
So in something like that, do you ever have like, for lack of a better term, like guest appearances where you're like, hey, I'm going to bring a friend. He wants to watch and then he's just, maybe he's an NPC or maybe he something else.
I've done that before in multiple senses. I've had people come and just watch. Like I've had people that are friends of the friends who will just be like, this person just wants to, they've heard about the game and they just want to watch the play. Yeah. And that has happened 3 or 4 times in my life where I literally am running a D&D game and I have like a little bit of a peanut gallery that are just watching the play. And then I've also had moments where someone comes in for a session or maybe 2 or 3 sessions playing a side character that is not going to be permanent fixture in this story, but has something to add, has like an interesting perspective. And then they will go off. It might be life. The greatest enemy of all social interaction is scheduling. So the biggest monster in D&D is scheduling. And sometimes you have a friend who wants to take part but can't be there all the time, and that's perfectly fine.
Because it sounds a lot of fun. Like I love video games and like partying up with people in video games and playing it. Like doing that with my friend. I talk about it all the time on the podcast. My friend Matt. We play Fortnite. And it's fun to be able to talk and play this video game, but even when you said watching, that sounds interesting to me too. Just like watching this game, because it is like watching a play or a movie or a show, and if you guys are good at it, like then it's a good thing to watch too. You know what I mean? Like it's entertaining.
I've actually thought about filming sessions and finding some way to publish. I'm currently recording all the episodes of the Delta Green game, just the audio.
Oh, well, if you need a place to put them, let me know, because. It does cost money for some of the stuff to be published. I'm sure there's free spaces too. But if ever you want to put it somewhere, you can. I'd be happy to post it on here.
I might consider that. I will have to do some editing, and there's a couple of times where like my phone has died,
Oh,
and
really?
so I'll have to like reenact a couple of scenes.
Yeah.
But
I will tell you there are a few podcasts that I listen to where there's one is called Mission to Zix, where it's about a space, a group of people and they're in space, and it's all fictional stuff, like everything is made up, and
Right.
but it's improv too, and in between seasons they did a couple episodes of a D&D game that they made up, but they recorded it. And what's cool is not only did they record it, but they also used everything at their disposal for the podcast, where they had sound effects and like, background noise and all this other stuff where it added to it. But you could still tell they were playing the game, because like the DM would say something or somebody would laugh or whatever. And, they kept part of it in. But that's where it got me like, oh man, this sounds really fun to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's another podcast that I really like. I think it's like Old Gods of Appalachia.
Okay.
Which is like a nature horror anthology series, and they used lots of like the external sound effects, the ambient noises. A creature will appear, and you can hear it.
Yeah,
and it's scary.
Yeah.
And that's something that I also like. I have these recordings that are just like essentially my raw voice and the raw voice of my friends, but it would be really cool to like put it into like a finished, publishable
I think
form
so.
and see if anybody's interested in seeing it.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, I like editing, that kind of stuff too. So whenever you decide to do something with it, I think I'd be interested to be involved in some of that.
Yeah, I'll probably send you the audio files. I have about 2 more sessions left of that game.
Okay.
We're reaching the climax, but I'll when I have all the audio files, I'll definitely send them your way.
Yeah. I think that'd be cool. Even to listen to, as someone who likes, who apparently likes listening to D&D games, because I've several of the podcasts I've listened to, I probably listened to 3 or 4 D&D like episodes, because they're like, oh, in between seasons, let's do this thing,
Let's just see what it's about.
Yeah, and I know they're good at it, because I know they do it. You can tell they do it. But
Right.
Here's one for the audience, in case they're interested. And there are podcasts where it's just like, here's our D&D game. There's podcasts about anything. You can search it. And
That's
put it in.
very true.
Have you watched Key and Peele? Have you seen their D&D sketch?
I don't think I've seen their D&D sketch.
Oh my gosh. This is when I used to have a screen that I would play stuff on from time to time, but it doesn't have any volume. But I'll play. We'll see how if it's worth it to play it on my phone.
Adventurers. Greetings. As you all can see here, we have a new traveler in our ranks. This is my cousin Tyrell, and he will be controlling the player character.
His name is Kanye. He's a giant,
Dear cousin, traditionally, a giant is not assumed by a player. It is a chaotic evil.
But I want to be a giant, yo. All big.
Okay, fine. Well, travelers, you are joined on your adventure today by a giant named Kanye. Now, when last we left you, you were at the Inn of the North Star in the town of Isildur. How do you begin your adventure?
I want to get some bitches. Tyrell,
this is highly unusual. I think the guys probably just want to go on the quest that you've already...
Stephen?
Yes?
I'd like to join Kanye the Giant.
Seriously. All right. The two of you enter the tavern. What do you say?
Kanye the Giant orders Alizé.
Says the barkeep. I know not of this foreign beverage of which you speak. Perhaps you would enjoy an Elven ale.
No, we both want the Alizé.
Alizé does not exist in this world.
Kanye the Giant slaps that bitch.
Oh! Kanye the Giant attempts to slap the bartender. Here. The bartender is half hobbit and very nimble, so you're going to have to roll an 18 or above to hit. 20.
Slap the hobbit's book off, yo.
Okay. Gollum the Cleric, would you care to restrain Kanye the Giant before the town guard is called?
I grab money out of the register.
Gollum the Cleric is lawful good. This act of thievery would dishonor his gods.
Hey, man. The only guys is money and bitches, dude.
I accept Kanye the Giant's gods, and, I steal some of the money, too.
You too. Okay. Would you now like to continue your quest for the lands of Kaldahar?
Fellas, we came here for bitches. Where the bitches at?
All right, you see a bevy of well-endowed wenches.
Great. I grab them bitches, and we all go in my SUV.
Fine. Kanye the Giant, Udar the Dwarf, and Gollum the Cleric climb into his SUV with their bitches and their ill-gotten gains.
And our Alizé. Plus, Kanye the Giant puts his demo CD in the CD.
No, he doesn't. There are no CDs in this world. You know what? Do whatever you want.
I guess I'm the dungeon master now. The Eye of Odin opens up. 16 titties fall out.
Yeah. There's. That's a very funny sketch. That's the importance of a session 0. Is to be like, what kind of game do you want? Even wilder, there's a game that is essentially what he wants, which is Cyberpunk, which is all like
Really?
It's like GTA, but it's like a little sci-fi, and you got robot arms. But that's the whole game. Is you go around, you rob stores, you fight gangs. Like that's TG. It will do that. There is a game for him.
Are there times when you run into a game and someone says something and you're like,
okay.
what?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. And I've gotten really good with like rolling with punches and trying to adapt to what players want. But sometimes you'll be caught completely off guard, and you're like, "What the hell are you talking about, man?"
I can imagine because it's more or less. I mean, there's some improv, and you got to think on your feet or whatever. And someone's just like, might be looking at something, and you're like, "Oh yeah, now I throw a fireball." You're like, "Wait, what? When did you get a fire?" Like or something? You know what I mean? Like
there's there are lots of different people can play in a game. The biggest table that I've ever ran for was, I think, 18 people.
Oof.
Yes, oof is correct. Way too many people. And basically the way that I did it is I just had them fight a big dragon. And so I just made the whole session a fight, and I got to go around. But especially with the more people that you have at your table, everyone wants a different experience. Everyone's looking for something different. Kanye the Giant really wanted
Alizé and bitches.
Alizé and bitches. But I was playing a game that was set in Icewind Dale, which is like this like fictional fantasy tundra, and I had a player come to the game with a giant character. This is actually really funny. Who was essentially a mock copy of the WWE wrestler Macho Man Randy Savage, and his name was Andy Savage. Like it wasn't Andy Savage. It was not like it wasn't a great veneer.
Yeah,
it was very clearly like this is just the wrestler transcribed into, and I still found a way. Like you can work with that. Like if that's what someone is interested in. Find a way. Like it's all made up. Just you can think of ways to make it work. And he ended up having a really great story arc over like 100 sessions. He had this fairy like manager who would schedule his gigs and gave him like super strength essentially. But the deal was he could, if he touched any money, anything valuable, it vanished in like a puff of glitter because the manager took essentially all of the wealth that he came in contact with. And so we actually ended up having this like really great story with this really silly concept of Macho Man Randy Savage in like the Skyrim-esque like North fighting Yetis and skeletons and zombies. And then he's essentially doing like elbow drops off of pine trees. Like it was a lot of fun. It was still a lot of fun. So there is a way to cater to that in a way that doesn't break your world. But yeah, the session 0 is important so you don't have someone completely commandeer what is going on.
That's how I would imagine it'd be hard. Sometimes it'd be hard to have like, here's this guest for this session or for a couple sessions because they, like you could be 10 sessions in and you know. It's unless you like knew coming in, here's your character, you have to stay within the parameters of here's what's happening. You know?
That's usually when I do a guest, either it's someone who's just spectating, that can be anybody. But if somebody is being a guest player, I have to like know them and know that they are going to come at it with some level of respect for me and the story I'm telling.
Yeah.
And because without that, then just crazy nonsensical stuff can happen. But I think that for people who are like just getting into it, you should always like, here's just your own game.
Yeah.
So you have a sandbox to figure out what the hell you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I've thought a couple of times about even starting one like at the Metroparks.
Oh yeah,
just like a little thing and making it even like parks or like ecology focused. I've actually run several games that have very, very focus on like, this is about like trying to help the nature of an area. That just aligns with some of my own personal beliefs, but which is also it's really easy writing to expound upon things that are close to you.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. If you play multiple games with your DM, just like if you watch people play in multiple games, you get to know the DM very, very closely as well, because again, everything that you do in any creative way is just a reflection of yourself at a different angle.
Well, that's why when I would do stand-up comedy, it's when I first started, my very first set was about my wife being pregnant. Mm-hmm. So that was over 14 years ago when I like first did an open mic, and you know, as things happened, and my son was born, then my daughter was born, and then that's how my jokes came about, was from my kids or my wife or work or my family, like all, because that's what I knew.
Right.
Similar to what you're talking about. Like if you want to write this ecology-based, nature-based campaign, then like then it's easier to do because that's what you know. Why would I write jokes about, you know, owning 4 dogs when I don't own 4 dogs? Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly. You need to make it come from places that you are already knowledgeable of. I had a game where like the big enemy of the whole game was this like nature spirit who's just enraged, just full of this like fury, and was doing all of these destructive things to stop a city from growing. And it was very much lashing out. And that was all like, it was just a personified, like, that's how angry I am, essentially. Like, it was just like the big enemy of the game was just me, but like in this like fictionalized sense that was like, and the intensity was gone, like turned up to 100%. And that's basically how all of it works in a TTRPG is as a player, you kind of find this thing that you're interested in, this fantasy, this mythos that you like feel like relates to you. And then you get to go at it full throttle with no consequences. And it's the same thing as a DM. You get to find these facets of yourself that exist within you, and you get to go at it full throttle with not many consequences.
Do you get surprised by yourself sometimes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think I have probably learned more about myself, like as a person, through TTRPG than like through like my interactions with people, or like I've been in therapy for many years. Yeah. And sometimes the TTRPG is more insightful than like a therapy session.
Well, therapists are going to ask you questions, and then you're going to respond and question and respond. And why'd you do that, or why'd you say that? And these things, I'm
acting in a situation.
You're just going.
Yeah,
you're just doing.
Yeah. I am reacting to like external stimuli. I am putting my brain in these situations. And then you get to see like how this facet of yourself reacts. I think it's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
I think everybody should try it at least once. And it's hard to find a good group.
Yeah.
That's the biggest enemy is scheduling. The second biggest enemy is like getting into like the right jive with somebody. Mm-hmm. It's the chemistry of the table. My
first thought was like, this is very fun. I think this would be cool. And to fix the scheduling part, it's like, it'd be cool to do with like my wife and my 2 kids to like try it and see what that looks like. Because kids are, I mean, they'll say anything or you know, be this character or whatever, you know. But I think that would be cool.
And there are systems that are even simplified for like if you have like younger kids. It's not as like complex.
Yeah.
And then there are also systems for when you get older and you like that like crunchy number stuff. There's systems that are like 20 times more complex than D&D that I can't wrap my head around.
I always think about like, how like we talked about, you turn this into content. So how do you turn this into content? And then I thought like, okay, if these are, some are probably better than others, but if you're recording these and you're hearing all the players involved like do things, then I feel like that's like a baseline for like a script. Where you can like, all right, instead of just listening to this, which is also fun, how do I adapt this to make like a little script of like an actual I call it audio drama.
Right. I actually have a friend who we did a cyberpunk game, which is the game that I was saying that Kanye would love.
Yeah.
And we did 10 episodes, 10 sessions, and they're all like 3 hours each. And it was a really, really good game. I played in it. I actually didn't run it. A friend of mine ran it. But another friend who played in it, he's in medical school to be a doctor. And I have no idea where he finds the time. But he has been transcribing that game into a script, into like an actual broken down script where we have our lines and the things that happen. And it's really good.
Wow.
And I don't know exactly where he's going to take it, where he's going to go with it.
Yeah.
But it very much lends itself to, you can like flesh it out further. That's why that's the whole purpose of me recording the Delta Green games. Is because I know that there is a potential that exists there for it to be pushed further beyond just the sitting at the table and the acting it out.
Because it doesn't even have to be the actual exact audio. That can be like very similar to what your friends do in transcribing it, and then you can still use your friends to be like, all right, this is your character, now I need you to voice him or her again.
And that's basically what he's doing, is he's asked us to, like, especially the scenes that where our characters are in, and just like, is this what you would say? And people do take like ownership of their characters, like, because it kind of is like it's a little version of you. And so like when someone says like, then this character says this, and you're like, I am that character. You don't get to decide how they say that. I do. And I think that's actually pretty valid.
For sure.
Because you are the impetus of that character.
I think that's why people have a hard time when books get turned into movies, is because in your brain, it's like, well, that's not how I thought this character was or sounded or did or what this person would do. But it's not you. It's whoever turned it into a movie, their director or the producer.
Right. They have their own vision that then gets pulled into. I remember I read Lord of the Rings. I saw it first as a little kid, and I was like, this is cool. And then I read it all. And then I watched it again with new eyes. But it took me a long time to read the books. And all of like the character names I was pronouncing different in my head. And so it was like the first time is like a mix between like, oh man, I have so much context, this is awesome, and also like, I'm enraged, why are you saying these words that way?
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's hard to compute your exact thoughts on how something should be when someone else does it.
Right.
Yeah. How'd you so you worked with the Metroparks for us, and we talked about your ecology-based games and all that stuff, and you're into this, all these D&D stuff, and I know I should have said it at the beginning, but you made my graphic for the Christmas.
Yes, I did.
Right, and so you do graphic design and that kind of stuff. What is it in your past or just in your life in general? You're like, oh, I want to work at the parks, like, because it's you don't get to do any of that stuff. You're out mowing or trimming or cleaning or organizing or.
There actually is a through line there.
Okay.
But I've always been creative. I've always drawn and had narratives. And the reason that I actually drew, why I started illustrating in the first place, was because I was trying to put visuals to narratives. Like, I had a story in my head, and for some reason I spent my time making pictures of the story instead of writing the story.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's going to continue to be a great weakness of mine, just in my life. And so that's why I went to college. I have a degree in digital art, which has a lot to do with animation and coding and character design. Lots of the like behind the scenes moving parts behind like an animated show or a video game. That's basically what I learned.
Okay.
Which is different than like marketing and graphic design, although I know a lot of the same tools. And then when I got out of college and I had gotten this degree, but I hadn't loved getting the degree because it was all minutia. It was all like, here are like the nuts and bolts and gears of tools to tell stories and not how to tell better stories. And that's all that I had ever really been interested in.
Well, just listening to you describe how you run a game, they're giving you like, all right, here's this, like, what'd you call it? When D&D would give you like a
module.
So here's the module. And when you're taking classes, you're like, okay, this is fine, but I want to do this, put this in here and move this out and do this and do that. And
right. And I would try to do that. And I think it's very reflective in the work that I did produce in college, is that I tried very hard to get things to fit into my own interests, and I've always had a very strong interest in wildlife and conservation. I volunteered with the Toledo Zoo Teens. My name is Noah, and so all of my gifts as a child for like the first 5 years were all just animals, which I don't mind at all.
They were arc-based?
It was all arc-based, and that probably shaped me in a few ways.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But that's always been that is the thing that I find interesting and important. The thing that I'm good at is telling stories. And when I got into like the field out of college of just like, here's the jobs that are available, I was like, this sucks. Yeah. Like I don't like the minutia of this because it doesn't feel. It's all small parts that then get made into a story way down the line, but it's not the storytelling. Yeah. It's nuts and bolts. And I have a huge amount of respect for the people who make the nuts and bolts. Things can't happen without that, for sure. But it's just not what my brain finds interesting or understands. And so I wound up at the parks because in the same way that I couldn't bring myself to work in like the nuts and bolts production within like a digital sense, I couldn't bring myself to work in the nuts and bolts production of like anything. Like if I don't believe my effort is going to matter in something that I believe in, I find it incredibly hard to do it. I am incredibly difficult to convince to do anything. I have to decide to do it. It's impossible for someone to argue at me. I have to come to it myself and like decide like this is worth my effort. And so like you work at like you work wherever to make money, but in those jobs it's just like I hate this and I don't believe in the institution and it just feels bad and I don't believe in it. And with the parks, I really do believe that public parks in a local sense, metropolitan sense, and the national park sense, they're good. They're just unequivocally like this is a good thing for people, for ecology, for wildlife. The effort that gets put into making a park good is good effort spent. That's just a bottom line is true across the board. And there's almost no jobs where that is the sense for me that I'm also able to do. Like I could be a doctor and that would be good pretty much across the board. I don't think I have the brain to be a doctor. I don't think that is the gifts that I have. I like being outside. I like putting my effort towards things that matter. And I like making people's lives better. And I think that the parks translates into all of that. And ideally, probably way down the line, I want to marry the concepts of being a storyteller and creating these interesting narratives and these interesting expressions of individuality and self-expression and myth and fiction and marrying that with like really impactful work ecologically, conservationally, creating good environments that people live near. I mean, there's so much studies and data to support that even living near a park, your quality of life is like increased by like times 5, times 10.
Yeah.
And it's because, and I could talk about this for hours. We're getting into a big tangent, but I think that humanity, we are really intrinsically connected in like a deep system of life. And we treat ourselves like we're separate. And I think that a lot of our problems come from believing that we're separate from a deeply connected system. And parks is the thing that exists that is a portal between those two worlds. It is the land that we do allow to exist in the center of our human experience that is still natural, that is about the system of life. And it's the main way that most modern people get to interact with that system.
Yeah.
And so I think that's incredibly important because I think that the only way things change is when people change their minds, when people have the space and the materials to interact with that and come to their own conclusions. That's another thing. I tried very hard not to be preachy. This is very preachy. This is incredibly preachy.
Well, but
I can't be
fine.
preached to.
Yeah.
Right. And so I try to think of ways to come up with these ideas that are just giving people the resources. Like here is a bag of all of the things that you might find important, and there's definitely things in this bag that I don't find important at all. But I want to make sure that you have access to all of them.
Yeah.
That you have access to all of these things and you can make your own decision. But when you don't, when some other person or some entity takes things out of those bags, just like you don't get to decide that ecology is important because you'll never interact with it in your daily life. I think that's wrong and bad, because then you never encounter it. And if you can't encounter something, you can't consider its importance.
So considering all that, and what is the perfect, like, what is the perfect job for you? Or what is the job that may in your brain doesn't exist, but you're like, oh, I know this is something that can be done. Like, what is, because it was very, at the beginning of that, it was very like, here's what I can do and what I went to school for, and I want to be able to provide that for people in this nature sense. So what does that look like for you?
I think what that looks like is it has to be creating the spaces and the opportunities for people to interact with both nature and narrative. And that might be something like running like community events. And this is... Sorry, I'm thinking now.
No, you're fine. Yeah. Because listening to you is like, all right, well, you would be like, our programming department does a lot of good stuff like that, right?
They do. But there is like a strange line, because I think there's some level of commodification, because there's a difference between running events that are meant to be like, I am creating like a narrative experience versus I am at the ticket booth of a roller coaster.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like the difference between those two things. And you might need to have both. Like, I understand that. And I understand that things need to be funded.
Yeah.
And I have lots of ideas about that as well. But the minutia of like, okay, I've sanded this down to where nobody will be offended by this idea and nobody will have any problems with it. And I'm going to charge everyone $10 because that's a reasonable amount for this experience. You've taken all the teeth out of it. You've taken all of the, if it's not allowed to be individual, if it's not allowed to be unique, I think that you lose a lot of content and a lot of opportunity for really interesting things to happen. And I think that happens a lot when you're trying to like create a commodity or a product or an experience that's supposed to be like broad general public. I feel like I'm going to go on so many rants. But I know.
You know, creating programs wherever you're at, whether it's in a school or a park system or wherever, like that's I guess what best serves is having to do stuff like that, because then you're able to catch the most people. And like our Connections Camp, we do a lot of the Connections Camp is specifically geared towards kids who may have never seen a park in their entire life. So they come, they touch a worm for the first time, or
that's awesome.
You know, like that, but they do a lot of things because they want to get to experience all these things, and it is very broad, which you're able to impact. I think you're able to impact the most people that way, but not necessarily impact deeply. And maybe that's what you're getting at. I think you want to do more. I want
depth and not width. I guess is what I'm talking about. And I suppose the best job then, in theory, would be like designing the programs themselves, like coming up with program curriculum, which I I guess you could say I have experience doing running games.
Yeah.
Is essentially like an improv program curriculum because you design the setting, the world, you have conversations with people as to like here's the best way to approach them.
Did you ever think about writing books? Like not even like novels. Just think about just like children's books.
I've written a children's book.
Oh, you have?
It's not published.
Sure.
Because I just haven't been taking it to publishers. If I'm being completely honest,
Yeah.
Because I'm completely self-conscious. I need to take. I wrote it and I illustrated it, and it's got.
That's what I was going to say. Like that is your thing. Yeah.
I did do that. That's actually what I did. I finished the illustration of that book like the 1 or 2 weeks before applying for the job at the Metroparks.
Okay. What's it called? And what is
It's called The Boy and the Troll.
Okay.
And it follows the story of this kid who is cut off from all the things that he's normally interested in because he's with his grandma in the woods and there's no Wi-Fi, there's no chargers for his phone,
Yeah.
so he's super bored. And he's like 12, and the book is meant for like 12-year-olds, and so he's forced essentially out of boredom to go interact with his yard. And over the course of the story, he gets deeper and deeper away from his grandma's cottage, and he ends up having to do a very loose. He breaks a rock because it's standing on the side of a big ledge under a dry creek bed, and of course you're going to throw the rock into because what else are you going to do? And he shatters the rock, which was a sleeping troll, which bursts out of the rock, and he has to do this like cat and mouse to get back. And there's a lot of inspiration that goes into that. The biggest being I've read like tons of I shouldn't say ancient, but like medieval manuscripts. And I did that a lot in college. I almost had a minor for classics, but my degree didn't allow for a space for a minor. But like Arthurian legend and the Icelandic sagas and French poetry, all that kind of thing. And one of the things that pops up a lot is the idea that a hero or your protagonist, the main thing that makes them successful is cunning, is the ability to outthink your opponent. And that is the thing that is like glorified in lots of those stories. So it is him having to outthink this troll. And the biggest advantage he has is the troll's like 10 times bigger than he is, stronger fangs, claws. It's blind. And so it is trying to find him, but he's trying to find ways to trick him throughout the story to get back to the cottage.
Yeah.
Thinking back to like Odysseus and the Cyclops, he has to outthink the Cyclops in order to beat him and escape. So calling back on those old myths, it's definitely something that I had a lot of. It was weird to produce. I had a lot of fun writing the story and a lot of painstaking, like, this sucks drawing the story. Because, and this was true in college as well. When I draw something, I have these really huge visions of very intense illustrations that are like have lots of very fine detail, and I like to illustrate with pen and ink. And so you have this really small surface area of an instrument, and then you're doing like a poster board worth of space. With really, and whenever all of my best work has this like intensely painstaking like dots of ink that like pull into this much more intense image. And I do that to myself, and it's the way that I can produce the best images. It sucks to make. It like physically hurts. Your hand like gets stuck in a position, you can't move it. And so that part was harder, but I do like the piece. And I included lots of like black and white images in the back of the book. So all of the images of the drawings, I included essentially a coloring book in the back that was uncolored, so a kid could do it themselves.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I just haven't been taking it to publishers because I'm incredibly self-conscious, which is again like that's just my own weakness.
I mean, people self-publish stuff all the time.
I know.
You could do that.
I could. The most popular way to self-publish right now is off of Amazon.com. Which I have reservations about for some reason.
Okay. Well, I mean, I understand. A lot of people do, but...
Yeah, but...
Well, if you ever want to turn that into an audio drama, I'm game for that as well.
Oh, man, I've actually... that story happened... this is something that D&D has been actually a great boon in my life, is my ability to improv.
Yeah.
I I'm a great campfire storyteller.
Okay.
I go camping with my family every year, and so I have these little cousins who will be sitting at the fire. And when I say little, I mean like 5 to 10, so like perfect campfire story age range. And they've learned that I can tell a story.
Yeah.
And so, I made up the first draft of The Boy and the Troll was completely improv, like off of on the spot. Like I hadn't any idea of structure. I just did it.
Yeah.
And that's why it pulls from so many things that I've read.
Yeah.
And so I already have like voices for like the kid and the troll. And that's another thing D&D has given me. I do great voices for mythical creatures because like I'm unashamed to like really go into it. Yeah. And so maybe at some point I will do an audio drama of The Boy and the Troll.
I think it lends itself to that. And also like you owe it to yourself to do something with that. Like thinking about the work that went in, not obviously the story itself, but having to illustrate everything and put it all together, like you owe it to yourself to do something with it. Whether you take it to publishers and ultimately, let's say you take it to 6 and they're like, no, we're good. Okay, well, at least you tried, and now you know. All right, well, they don't want it. It's got to go. I think it has to go somewhere. Let's self-publish, or let's make an audio drama, or at the very least, just read it as audio. You know what I mean? Like you know, or create a YouTube video where you're reading it and then the images are popping up. Like all that, but you owe it to yourself to do something with it. Like that's a lot of work.
I probably should. I'm actually really guilty of this. I have my closet is crazy. I have literal like it's as tall as me.
Yeah.
And it's like 2 stacks of like sketchbooks and portfolios and there are worlds in there that nobody knows. Mm-hmm. I've written entire histories and continents and maps and creatures and family trees and illustrated them, and like they exist.
Yeah.
But I'm very self-conscious of them because I know where their flaws are.
Yeah, but you do, but other people don't.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And this is true.
Like when I always talk about when we got married, my wife and I got married, like little things happen and you freak out because like, oh my God, this is our wedding day. This thing happened or this. And I tell people all the time, like little things are going to happen, but no one's even going to know. Like you might have all these drawings where you know, like, oh, in the top right corner of this one that happened, or in the middle of this, I remember I coughed and some spit flew out and it messed it up a little bit. Like you know all those things, but people aren't going to know. Yeah. I've never seen one of your drawings besides the ones you make of me on the dry erase board.
You've never seen any of my drawings?
No.
And that's actually I would say that probably 95% of all of the art and writing that I produce never sees the light of day.
And that's my
anyone.
point. Like people don't know like if you put 2 of your things side by side and say one of these is really good and one of these I really like and one of these I really don't like, and you put them next to each other, the everyday person aren't going to know the difference. And I think that's what's important too. Like for me, the podcast I do, I put it out every time. I owe it not only to myself, but to the guest that sits here for an hour and talks. Like I owe it to them to put it out and put the best product I can. And I know I'm guilty of not checking cameras all the time and making sure they're on, or not creating social media for more people to see them. You know,
right.
like that's I'm guilty. I know I'm guilty of that. But for you, you're like. You're only hurting yourself, man. Like, there's plenty of free spaces to put these things out. You know?
I know. I'm a person very much ruled by fear, which is something that I'm working on. Yeah. And there is also another thing that goes for like all of the most successful people that make really earnest content, like content that I feel like is like human and real, are the people who just churn it out.
Absolutely.
They just keep.
You did that part already.
They keep going, and they just keep making things, and they just keep putting it out there. And like the number one YouTuber ever, which was PewDiePie for the longest time, he only got there because he just did like 1 or 2 videos a day. And like they weren't even necessarily great to begin with, but it was the consistency of like he just kept going and marching at it.
Are your books and sketches is it dated? Is everything dated, or you don't know?
No, some of it is.
Okay.
There are people in my life who are just like, you have to date these, please. And so I do sometimes, but lots of them aren't. But there's definitely a transformation over time of content for sure.
Even then to like and maybe this is a different podcast we do where we talk about strictly just your stuff, where we say like, all right, and that lends itself to YouTube. We're like, all right, here's the beginning, and I know this is the beginning because this is before I knew I liked pen, and this was all in pencil, or this was in marker, or whatever. Like, again, I think it all goes back to like you do so much work for, and it sounds bad, for nothing. Like,
well, so that's actually not true.
Okay.
Because I do think that the act of creation, expression, it's the opposite of like depression.
okay, yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, you're right.
It is like the act of making, I think, is really, really human. I think that everybody should be making things.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily have to be like creative content. You should the human brain has been designed like you spend like hours making food or hours making your
Yeah.
own clothes. Like that's been like 30,000 years of history has
Yeah.
been like the human mind must create.
Yeah.
And I feel like lots of the time there's a huge like all we do now is consume, especially content. And so I think that there was a lot of value in me making those things.
Absolutely.
It just as an expression of self, an expression of externalizing an internal world.
But don't you think other people can get something out of it too?
Maybe.
You know, and I'm not even
Maybe.
talking about monetization. I think maybe that's part of maybe some hesitancy, because I
That
know
is
that
part of,
might be
that is part of some
something for you,
hesitancy.
right?
That is something for me, and I have complex ideas about that as well,
Yeah.
because you have to make money to live, but at the same time, sometimes monetization feels weird. Sometimes it can affect like the spirit or the soul of the thing.
The way I think about it, though, for me, like I feel the same way. Like I want to make enough money right now where it's not costing me money, right? So can I get to zero? And
Zero is perfect.
And then after zero, I already have, okay, if I my grand plan is to obviously live all this podcast. If I can pay my bills, then that's better. Then if I can get more than pay bills, I already in my brain I'm like, all right, well, I definitely, if I get to be like super rich with this podcast, well, I already know
Right.
where I'm going to donate money, or I already know what I want to do or build or create to like help other people do these things. And you know, as someone who is paying her bills and lives a comfortable life, I know what that feels like. I also know what it feels like to grow up when my parents got divorced and my dad lost the house. Like all that stuff happened too. Like,
Right.
So I want to be able to help other people, and maybe that's where your stuff comes in too. Where like if you do, like whenever that happens, and you know, I would love to help you with that stuff. And if I don't, I don't either. I just want you to do that stuff and get it out. Maybe at that point you're like, oh, I made off this one thing. I made some money. I'm either going to reinvest in myself, which I've done with the podcast, whether it's buying cameras or new equipment or whatever, or I'm going to donate to this thing that I really like, and this is where the money's going to go. You know, like,
Yeah.
you know, because I know that's hard for people too, is like making money off stuff.
Making money off stuff is weird, and I always feel it's very, because I've done art for like local programs, and I've made art for businesses, and I've
Yeah.
made logos. I've made a version of your logo, and lots of that stuff can be fun too. And then, but sometimes that work can also feel, it just doesn't feel as good to create because the source of the creation is different.
Yeah.
You know, like it's doing something different. It is the difference between work and the difference between expression, which is, and I do think that on like I'm going to say it, I think that it's on like a spiritual level, like the resonance of the artwork changes as soon as like money is involved.
Yeah.
And that matters to me on like a personal level.
I understand that, and then part of it is, I guess you would have to think like, all right, well, this thing I'm doing feels gross because I'm getting paid for it, but it's also helping me do this other thing which I really love to do.
Right,
You know,
a measure of resources and what you're willing to do in order to move forward in different things.
Yeah. I mean, overall, we gotta end here because I gotta.
Oh, do we?
Soon. I got another guest coming, but overall, like, you've worked with us for 9 months, 6 months, whatever it is. I can't remember. And learning more about you, and obviously coming on here and learn a lot more about you, coming on the podcast, having all that stuff, like having all your work, again, like you said, and you're 100% correct, it was good for you to produce all this stuff for you. Like it is your expression, is you're creating, like you said, you're making things, you're feeding your brain by doing all these things. I just think at someone listening to this conversation might get something out of this conversation. And I think that's what it is with your art. Like someone might get something out of it, or might realize like, oh, I like doing this stuff after seeing Noah Taylor's things, you know, or like after reading his book about the boy and the troll, like, oh, you know what? I had a similar idea. Maybe I should start working on that. Like these things can feed other people. And again, it's not just about you, like, making money, you know, that's part of it, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think it's, you have to look, and you're not dumb. I'm sure you've looked at that part of it too. Like you look at art where it gives you something, and you probably equate it to, oh, maybe at some point someone might see this, you know. But everyone always doubts their things. I doubt this podcast all the time. One time I called it a stupid little podcast, and my mom's like, "It's not stupid."
Aw, that's really sweet.
You know, like,
and I've had similar experiences with my art or my writing where I'm just like, this is terrible, and someone's just like, don't do that.
but whatever, and I'll, you know, obviously leave this up to you. And I think, you know, we spent, which was awesome. I'm not saying it as bad. We spent half this podcast talking about D&D, which is, I love it. It was really cool because it wasn't
you asked me what I was nerding out about.
It wasn't just D&D. It was, we got into more things than that, right? So
right.
But this can be another thing. But I'll leave it up to you. Whatever I can provide for you to help, like whether it's just a platform or my YouTube channel, because I mean I don't have a lot of subscribers. I got like 230 some now, you know.
That's 230 more than me.
Yeah. Or whether it's, you know, using the podcast hosting site because it costs money every year to have this type of thing, you know. Mm-hmm. Whatever I can do for you, I'm willing to help because A, I like you. You're a good dude.
Thanks.
But I love art. I like this stuff, and it's very interesting to me. And I asked that question at the beginning because I want to know what people are into, because I like information. And it's fun to hear people that, especially people that I like, what are they into? Because it gives me more, you know, to learn about them or to talk with them about. And I know you only got a week left with us, but like all those things, you know, lead
right.
into it. So I want to be able to provide whatever help I can to you. Even if you don't think I can, shoot me a question because I will, you know, help you out in any way.
Absolutely, and I thank you very much for that. And I probably will bring you something, but. As you were saying, I think you absolutely should do something with a TTRPG, and I would be happy to be involved with that.
Yeah, man.
Because just the way that you're talking about your interests, about the human interest and the human condition, and understanding the people that you're close to.
Yeah,
that's one of the best expressions of that. And so
maybe
if we can make that, we can make both of these things happen.
Now I can't. I would love to do it with my family. It's got to be. I mean, I can't sit. We can't sit at a table for 3 hours doing something. But I'm sure you found some that are like a half hour or an hour or whatever.
Yeah. There's much less intense way. I'm not talking about 100 sessions, 4 hours.
Yeah. But I think that's something my kids would be into, and I know if I ask my wife, like she'll roll her eyes about it. But she would be interested too, especially if I can get someone like you to like run the game for us and know like we're gonna have a good time and it's gonna be professionally done. You know,
I'll send you some stuff. There's a great kid friendly game called Honey Heist, which is about bears trying to get honey.
Perfect.
But it's a simplified rule set.
All right, awesome. Well, Noah, thanks again. This was great. This was I knew it was going to be great, but this was a good time, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
I was very happy to come on. Thank you very much.
Thanks for downloading this episode of the Nerdball Podcast. If you want to reach out or be on the show, just search the Nerdball Podcast on any social media. If you want to email us, that is thenerdballpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, there's always YouTube, so you can go on there, subscribe to the Nerdball Podcast, and watch the podcast every week. As always, thanks to Real JP Multimedia, Cuddlefish Graphics, Big Daddy Graphics, and Perrysburg Junior High STEM Lab for always supporting the podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.